All right, well, let's go.
Okay.
Well, hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to this webinar. I see that we have a few people joining in right now. We're expecting to see a lot of our game changers from our game changer community to join us as well. Let's see here. You know, to see a lot more people starting to jump in and log in. Welcome from wherever you are in the world. East Coast. I know we're here on the East Coast, so there's a little bit of time difference for those jumping on the West Coast. We're not going to be too long. We want to make sure that we're conscious of everyone's time. We appreciate everyone getting on board, and we'll try to keep this thing moving and get going. Yeah, I'm going to still let some people come through. I'm really excited about the topic today. Everyone should be really excited. I hope you guys are excited because I've got two extremely knowledgeable professionals as part of the Vertex team that's going to share some knowledge with everyone and hopefully get you moving in the right direction with your sales and sales growth. Well, good deal. Good deal. All right, well, we're at the top of the hour, and I'm really ready to get this thing going, and I hope everybody's excited. So let's kind of just jump into this and get this thing going. Today we're going to have a special webinar on the Small Business Sales Acceleration Playbook. This is a live webinar, so we ask that everyone, kind of mute your phones, find yourself in a very quiet place with no distractions. And before we get started, let's kind of go through some housekeeping items here. We're going to try to keep this presentation right at about 60 minutes or so. If we get done a little earlier, we'll have some time to answer some questions. But as I mentioned before, this is a live webinar. So we're going to try to get to as many questions as we possibly can at the end. Make sure you take some notes. Get your pen and paper out. As I said before, I'm excited because I've got two experts in this field of sales that really I appreciate their time to jumping on this webinar as well. I'm not sure yet if we're going to have a replay, but for the sake that we do offer this as a replay, for those who are watching it as a replay, if you have any questions, feel free to send us your questions via email, and we'll try to get to them as quick as we possibly can. One of the things I want to kind of start with is the fact of things that we want to promise, okay? In this presentation, we're going to promise to you, and this is to the small business game changer community, all right? We're going to give you a proven sales system that you can implement right now. I mean, that is something that's more powerful than money can buy, especially in today's climate and economic situation. We're also going to help you, give you the strategy and the steps to gain an extra 10 to 15% more sales by implementing a process that we know is proven, and it actually works, okay? So during this presentation, we're going to go through those key components that you're going to need to implement into your business right now. If you want to compete in today's climate, tomorrow's climate, it doesn't matter whether it's, a bull or a bear market. The key is making sure that you have the right elements or the ecosystem in place. And we're going to go through all of those things here shortly. And for everyone who's motivated, okay, the real game changers that are motivated, we're also going to give you some bonuses if you stay to the end of the webinar. So get excited about that. This is free stuff that we're going to give, and it's going to help you and your small business kind of recover pretty quickly. And for those who have somewhat of a system in place, you should be able to utilize these bonus tools and get your business and your team back in the game and dominating your industry or your market. So let's get started with this. My name is Scott Coulter. I'm going to be your host. I'm actually the co-founder of APSI and the Vertex Business Group. I've been in business for about 30 years. I've been working with small business companies and executives for a good portion of my career. Came from the commercial end, where we were doing the exact same things at a major level, focusing on enterprise-type companies, but very excited to be a part of this group of entrepreneurs who have dedicated their lives to working with small businesses as well. And as I mentioned, I have two esteemed guests on this presentation this evening, and these are my partners in the Vertex Business Group, Mr. Jim Jeter and Anthony Shipman. And if you guys could take a few minutes and introduce yourself and let the Game Changer community know a little bit about yourselves.
Well, I'm Anthony Shipman, President and CEO of the Shipman Group, and I've actually been in the small business development sales game for the last 30 years, and we've actually been able to help companies grow from $1 million a year and help companies grow to upwards of $1 billion a year. And, you know, within our network, and we will definitely show you how you're able to do that based on relationships or access opportunities that will really help you grow your revenue. Thanks a lot, Scott. Appreciate the invitation.
Awesome. Oh, no, we're excited to have you on board. And Jim, if you could say a few words and introduce yourself to the folks on the webinar.
Yes, Jim Jeter here, Senior Executive Vice President of Extreme Data Technologies. And my expertise and talent comes primarily with over 30 years of federal government experience and driving sales and procurement as far as interacting with the federal space. And we're excited about an opportunity to share some of our and leverage some of our lessons learned and past performance experience and helping you to achieve your business goals that you may have.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And I just want to reiterate, for everyone who's on the webinar right now, just take note of this. You've got two individuals here, and these are what I consider power brokers in the small business industry, where they have helped small businesses, small and large companies alike, capture well over $200 million in opportunity. Now, we're talking small business right now. I mean, what we would do for an extra 10 to 15%, imagine having someone, sharing knowledge with you over the next 30 to 40 minutes that has helped other companies really explode in their growth and in their sales process. So I hope that everyone's excited. I see a lot of people that are, in the chat box that's just going bananas right now. And, I'm excited as well. So just hold tight. We're going to get to some really good content here. And hopefully you guys will walk away with something that you can implement in your business. So who is the Vertex Business Group? And as I mentioned to you earlier, we're just a group of executives that have come together to really focus on the small business community. In fact, this whole process started probably about 6 or 7 years ago. Another one of our partners and we were tasked by a global bank to help small businesses with credit readiness. And through that program, we were utilizing a lot of enterprise-level formulas, going in, and it was very complex, and we were just doing nothing but confusing a lot of the small business owners. We identified at that point that we needed to come up with better programs, a systematic approach, something that was simple, that focused on the people, the process, and results-driven solutions. And that was the defining moment for us as we started recruiting more and more executives, more and more business owners to this group we had at the time, and thus the Vertex Business Group was born. And part of our team, and we've got everyone from entrepreneurs, military leaders, procurement executives. We've even got some ex-NFL players that are known for their leadership, certified coaches, HR, finance. I mean, we've got program and project managers, recruitment specialists. We've got a team that can help you get your business in a better place, not only to just survive, but to thrive. So that's really who the Vertex Business Group is and what we're here to do. Now, as far as our core competency or core outcomes, three things we want to focus on with our clients. One is to reduce wasteful activities within the organization. We know from years of experience working with small businesses that there's a lot of wasteful activities. You know, we want to improve your profitability and we want to increase your revenues. But there's a systematic approach to conducting and doing those things, and that's what the Vertex Business Group is all about. We're all about helping with the business coaching, the sales, talent acquisition, and the key thing is developing power skills training. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later as part of your Sales Accelerator playbook. You know, as I mentioned before, we've done a lot as far as our track record. Again, we've probably helped capture over $200 million in new opportunities. Now, that's commercial and government, with small businesses who are motivated and who are committed to doing whatever it takes, okay, to grow their business to a point where they're not just, you know, getting through or getting by, they're actually dominating their market. We've worked with, hundreds of small businesses, executives. I know Jim and Anthony have worked with companies, you know, on a global scale. So we have the expertise to be able to share information with you that you can implement right now. And that's the key component of what we're doing today and how we help our company. So it's all about finding the right solutions to your problems. And that's another area where a lot of small businesses that we talk to that come, whether it's a free strategy call or whether they sign up for one of our programs, we know that a lot of times you're really not sure what it is that's impeding your growth. So the key is finding the right solution, okay, to your issue that will give you the maximum of growth and acceleration within your business. So as we get started here, I wanted to share a slide with everyone. It's the business maturity model. And some of you may have seen this before. I know the game changers that we typically deal with, you're very familiar with the maturity model. But for those who are not, there's several different versions or variations of the business maturity model. But we like to use the 4-phase instead of the 5-phase. But in both models, you still have the same things. And most small businesses, you'll find yourself in either the first, second, or third phase of this maturity model. And it boils down to this. If you're in a position right now where you truly have no clue of where your customers are, how you're going to drive sales to a customer that may or may not fit your product or service, you know, you're struggling with making basic operational decisions, you're probably in that just pure existent phase. Now, many of you, I know from what I can see here, are probably starting a business, and this is a good time to do that. But there's a lot of you on the call right now that are probably in that survival phase or in between existence and survival. Now, the survival phase, that's probably where we find 80 to 90% of the small businesses that contact us, okay? You're making some money. You have some revenue. You have a few customers. You may have, you know, good months, bad months, but there's no consistency. And that comes from, you know, somewhere there's no sustainability. Maybe your products are not packaged and priced properly. poorly documented processes, or if you even have processes at all. It's just too much inconsistency, not only in your sales channels, but in your business as a whole. And really, those are the small businesses that we see have the greatest return when they're able to understand how to systemize the business with the right strategy in the right sequence. So what are today's challenges that the small businesses are facing? And there's probably some common ones, but for the most part, it's all about sales growth, okay? At the end of the day, there's nothing more important to a small business than generating more revenues. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that are connected to those challenges. And what we're going to share with you today in the playbook is how to establish an ecosystem within your small business, whether you're a one-man entrepreneur or solopreneur, or you have 15, 20 employees within your company. Everything that everyone does in your business is connected. And that's where we see the biggest common challenge or common areas of failure for the small businesses. I mean, you're losing deals to the competition because of poor execution. You can't get in front of the right contact. That has a lot to do with what we're going to talk about today is your sales process. Maybe your talent is not right. And that's a whole different webinar that, maybe we'll put one on later on in regards to making decisions, based on real-time data in which you'll collect in your ecosystem to where you can see where your low points in performance are. But at the end of the day, most small businesses have very similar challenges. Now, the ones that are thriving, these are the companies that figured it out. They may not even have the best product or service, but they have a machine behind them. And I use the word or term machine because that's just another word for an ecosystem. So we're going to give you that knowledge today. We're going to give you everything that you could possibly need to establish your own machine or ecosystem and shore up some of these areas that we would consider as common challenges in the small business community. Now, one of the things that we like to do with all of our customers is help them establish some form of either a playbook or an ecosystem and that will allow them to be able to keep structure, consistent structure within the business. And what we've done for you in this presentation is we're going to give you every step, every element, every piece of the framework so that you can start building something that drives performance. And we all know that performance drives consistency. Did you guys have anything to add, Jim, Anthony? I know we have everyone else muted, and we're going to get to some of those questions here shortly.
Yeah, Scott, this is Anthony, and you're talking about driving consistency and being relative to the marketplace, and you have to consistently show your current customers whether or not you want to be a value-added supplier or a vendor. So you have to look at it two ways. Are you really a partner? At the end of the day, are you a vendor? And if you're a partner, you're part of the ecosystem, and it's hard for them to do without you. But if you're a vendor, that's basically really commodity driven, and you really, in today's times, you don't want to really be considered a vendor because you're not really valued in their ecosystem.
Oh, that's great input, Anthony. And I went back to the previous slide because you brought up something that I definitely wanted to add on as well. And as you can see here, these are just some of the common challenges that small businesses are facing. But as Anthony mentioned, you know, you're either a vendor or you really one or bad conversations away from being out the door. If they don't see value in who you are and what you bring to the table, it's going to be very difficult for you to improve in your sales growth or your total overall growth as a whole. But I wanted to go back and point out a couple things that really ties into what Anthony mentioned. You know, your pricing structure, right? So if your product or service or solution is not priced properly, then your clients are probably looking at you and your business as you're not that much of a value. And as Anthony mentioned, I mean, value is everything for a small business, and you should be dominating that space. I'll tell you this, and we've all worked for large companies. A big company, it takes forever to make change. It takes forever to pivot the business. It is almost like pulling teeth or an act of Congress to get anything done at a large business because it's just too much involved of getting it approved at the executive level, and then everything's got to be structured and trickled down to, you know, where an actual team can implement. But as a small business, if you have consistency in your activities, if you have an ecosystem in place, and then you're tracking the right data, and we're going to give that to you today. We're going to show you what to monitor and how to track it. You can pivot your business quickly. You're more agile. And then all you have to do is execute. That shows value to your potential customers. And I don't want to get too far ahead, but that is an area that is very important for any small business. Let me see here. I'm trying to get to, there we go. Here we go. Sorry about that, folks. Now let's talk about why you need a playbook or a systematic framework. It's very simple. Without structure in your sales process or in your business, all you're doing is conducting business off the seat of your pants. There's too much information for leaders to manage, maintain, and monitor as an owner to be able to really hone in, you know, at any moment within your processes. It's just too much. Even as an individual, there's no way you can do everything and keep up with, you know, your industry, keep up with, you know, your competitors and your customers. So when you have a systematic approach, and this is what the playbook does, there's two components within that. One is the framework itself, you know, a systematic approach to managing all that information, managing the processes, having the tools that you need in place to really be able to target your customers, manage your employees, manage your deals, negotiate deals, target your prospects, grow your revenues. It sounds like a lot, but when you have an ecosystem in place, it's very simple to manage. And the other component is the elements within. So if you break it down into key or core elements, then it's easy to manage on a daily basis. I mean, how many people agree with me that if I could show you 5 elements in your sales process, how easy it would be for you to be able to wake up in the morning, get to the office, and know that there's 5 things I need to really touch base on to make sure that I'm selling my growth. My business is growing at an accelerated rate. How many people? Yeah, I see a lot of people, you know, absolutely. I see some yeps, some yes. I see some hell yes. I mean, yeah, I absolutely. You know, it would make your life so much easier. And as you scale your business, it's easy to scale when you have a systematic approach. All right. All right. I hope you guys can see that. Seems like the network's a little slow on my end. So here's the Vertex playbook for small business growth. This is all based upon sales, and we're going to go through each one of these elements shortly and really provide you with some powerful information that you can just go back to your business and start dominating. But this is what it looks like, right? So again, as I asked before, if I could show you something like this that you can implement right now to manage everything that you're doing in your business, I mean, how cool would that be? Yeah, extremely cool, because right, for small businesses, you need to keep things simple. There's no need to complicate things. And that's what we found in that pilot program we did. And trust me, we ran that pilot program, I think, for 3 years, where the banks were like, okay, we really want to loan or lend money to small businesses, but we find they're just not structured. They're not organized. And then as you throw in the spaghetti wire of workflows and complex tools and methodologies, most of the small businesses really just wanted to focus on their core competencies. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you can't leave out, the sales process. You can't leave things behind. And when you go to your banking institution, or if you've ever even tried to go get funding from an angel, or you've gone to the Small Business Administration, everything's an application. And then they're going to go into your business. They're going to look at your operation. They're going to see if you can actually manage the money that they give you. And when you have a systematic approach to building your business, growing your business, managing the day-to-day operation, it's a lot easier for them to be able to see how well you'll be able to receive the money, go make more money, and pay back the debt. So there's a lot involved in that, and just keep all of those things in mind. So the first element of your playbook is the assessment and the evaluation. And I'll give you a little bit of time to kind of get your notes together there. But this is probably one of the most important elements within your ecosystem. Within our playbook, it's 100% the first thing that we do. So for anyone, for the Game Changers, already, our very first session is going to be an assessment. We want you to sit down and evaluate everything within your business. In this case here, your sales playbook, the first thing you should do is go back and look at, everything within that whole process. You got to understand your team, know their abilities. I mean, how many times, Jim, we've had sessions with customers, and they had no clue of what their team were capable of doing. It baffles us, but at the same time, we've been there, so we understand how easy that is, to kind of overlook. But then you come back and you wonder why your sales teams are not performing. It's because you really haven't conducted a true evaluation of their skills. Are they the right people? Do you have the right talent on board? Have you trained them? Those are things that you have to take in consideration. If it's you as an individual, then you have to be honest with yourself. Sit back and assess your skills, knowledge, and abilities. Look at your sales process that you have right now. Is it effective? Do you have processes? How are your presentations to the customer? And Jim's going to really give you some cool information from a customer perspective, because he was on both sides. He's been on both sides of the table. And bad presentations, man, it's truly a shame. Especially, a lot of you guys have some of the best technology, some of the best services and products in the world. But if you can't present it, or you hadn't focused on building your presentation skills, then it's all for nothing. Are you closing deals? Some people just overlook the fact that, well, the customer is just not interested, or, you know, what we see a lot is small businesses making excuses. They make a lot of excuses for why they're not dominating, but at the same time, it comes down to when you get in front of a customer and you're ready, they're excited, they want your product, you want to sell it, and you fail to close the deal. So you got to start evaluating those things. So I highly recommend make a list. Go through everything. Everything within your sales process needs to be assessed, and it needs to be evaluated. And I'll let Shipman go into the element, the planning element, and how that connects to your playbook.
Well, thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. And, you know, as you were talking about that one element in assessment and evaluation, and I just want to really let you know about a situation that we've known about with a customer. We had a client that was bidding on a project with a major shipping organization. So the organization was UPS that they were trying to get business from, but they ended up sending their proposal through FedEx. That is clearly you have not done what you needed to do. So because they sent their proposal through a competitor, that got them disqualified. And people don't understand when you're looking at this on a process and you're looking at a 10, 15, $20 million opportunity, that the little things like that, but if you had your assessment and the evaluation in play and everybody on the team knew exactly what was going on, and you don't overlook those little things. So, you know, when we talk about element and planning, you know, make sure your strategic plan aligns with your business strategy. And definitely make sure that you know who you are going after the business, what they like, what they don't like, and with making sure that your strategic plan aligns with your business strategy. You know, it's nothing wrong with being a lifestyle entrepreneur or a high-growth company. We've seen both. We've seen million-dollar companies get to 50, 60, $70 million. We've seen $800 million companies get to $3 billion. So, you know, you really need to identify who your key accounts are. You know, the 80-20 rule really does work. You know, 20% of the business is really what you really need to concentrate on. That other 80% are probably not companies that align with what you want to do, how you want to do, and your core competencies. You know, they're generating revenue, but revenue is not always profitable revenue. So we always tell our clientele, stay in your lane, do what you do well, and if there's anybody that asks you to do something outside of your lane, just be honest with them and say, hey, this is not what we do well. We know you like us. Or if they like you that much, why don't you go and partner with the right organization that can do the job well for them? So as we look at regional and national account strategies, you know, you have to look at three things: local accounts, regional accounts, and national accounts. Locally, you probably can make some changes within 30 to 90 days. Regionally, if you're going after a client, you can probably make changes within 90 to 120 days. On national accounts, it can take you up to 12 to 24 months for them to make a change. Like Scott said earlier, you know, when you're dealing with national players are, it's like being an airline. You know, it takes when you're at the plane and they're pushing back a gate, you do really notice that the planes don't go backwards because somebody has to help them with that, and then they go forward later. So when you're looking at your criteria to prospect and your pipeline, how quick can they pivot? How quick can you pivot? And are you a real value-added supplier to them? Identify the key areas, performance indicators to win activities, because you have to. It's almost like dating. When you're dating individuals, you want to know everything you can know about them, listen to them, and they're telling you where you need to be in order to get the business. For a lot of companies, they're so busy trying to sell that they're not listening to the clientele and what the customer profile really needs to look like. Each customer really has a couple things that they like. They like whether or not you're going to be a partner or a vendor. And in our case, over the last few decades, we've looked at MRO, IT, office supply, and government. So when people look at that, you really have to establish a proven customer profile. And we can go on to the next slide, Scott.
But before we move on, a couple of things I'd like for you to elaborate on.
Okay.
You hit right on the head here in the planning process. The biggest thing for small businesses is understanding your sales cycle. Okay? We see too many small businesses come in and they're like, man, my pipeline's full, but I'm struggling with my monthly quota or my monthly numbers. And as we dive into and start having these strategic planning sessions, then we find out that their pipeline is packed full of long-term cycles. And you just hit it on the head about the difference between a small business, a medium-sized, a large business target a client, and what that means to a small business in their sales cycle. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, because, with a lot of small businesses, we actually see that a local opportunity, people can pivot within 60 to 90 days. A regional opportunity, it's hard, you can possibly pivot within 90 to 180 days. When you look at these with those national opportunities, and I'll give you case in point. We had an MRO client that we managed. They had 10 plants in the U.S. and they wanted us to look at an opportunity to manage 20 plants in the U.S. But we did everything that we could: meet, eat, greet. We knew everybody in the supply chain. Everybody knew us. And when they decided, one day they called us and said, we want to displace this vendor, but we have to do it really, really privately. So we looked at this opportunity for 4 times in 24 months. Like I'm telling you, 4 times within 24 months. And this was back with the dot matrix age. I'm sure a lot of people don't remember that. And we quoted on it, not knowing that we were going to get it, but we were part of their supply chain in a critical area, and they wanted us to look at. So this process took us from doing $500,000 a year as a small company to doing another $1.2 million. But the cycle was we had to do everything along the way in order to get the opportunity to look at it 4 times, and that 4 times looking at it was a matter of 24 months.
Wow.
And small businesses have to realize that, hey, you're a great you're a great partner, but certain things have to happen where you can expand and grow your business, and you have to be ready. It took our team 2 weeks to just quote the opportunity to add another $700,000 worth of revenue to us. And it was all hands on deck. So
Wow.
when people realize that, are you ready to have all hands on deck to do business with a national corporate player? And we had gone to all of the facilities prior to not knowing that we were going to get the opportunity. So we probably spent in excess of $15,000 over the cycle in order to look at the opportunity. Now, we won the business, and it was very good business. And actually, my client today, they still have that business, and they've had it over the last 15 years. So
Wow.
you have to be ready, you have to be able, and you have to really realize what's the cost of you doing business with national clients, with regional clients, and with local clients. And most small businesses don't understand the cost associated with that.
And that's a great point, Anthony. I'm not going to hold you up because I know everyone, the chat box is going bananas right now. But I will say this, in terms of your playbook, as Anthony just alluded to, planning is important, okay? When you're planning in your playbook and you're sitting down with your team, make sure that you understand the sales cycle, okay? You should have a short-term, a mid-term, and a long-term set of customers or prospects in your pipeline. You have to have short-term quick hits, and you got to have the long-term, as Anthony mentioned, the 24-month big one-time, forever customers. But to be able to pay your bills, be able to get things moving, you have to have balance. And that all comes from the planning process, along with what it's going to cost, your cost of customer acquisition. Okay? So these are things that are very important. And thanks, Anthony. I didn't mean to hold you up, but I just saw some info come through the chat box, and I wanted to make sure that everyone understood that you can't just pack your pipeline full of 20-month-long prospects or potential customers. You got to have a balance, and that comes from your planning. You have to know your customer. You have to know, your customer profile inside and out.
Yeah. So as we talk about this, you need to really map your entire business sales process, and that includes everybody within your organization understanding the process that's going on. For us, when we got into this opportunities years ago, the only CRM tool was our spreadsheet. So now you have a lot of valuable tools that you can use to really help you understand what type of client you want, what they're doing business with, and you can do a lot of your research now within CRM tools. You really can. And establish and update the needs of the customers that you want to look at, why you want to look at them, and how long is it going to take you to acquire them. So through, this is our favorite. We acquire a lot of clients through meetings and trade shows. We believe being face-to-face with particular customers that we're going after, because we're asking them a lot of questions, and a couple of questions are, where are they today, where would they like to be, and where can we help them go? So, and if in the sales process, leadership can't answer those questions, it's a couple things that are wrong. they don't know who they are, how effective they are with their current clientele, and where they want to go. So that's going to tell you that, oh, you know what? If they don't understand that, you know, they might not be a good customer for you. We believe in building the right scripts, you know, to make sure that you're understanding exactly what their needs are and their objectives. Understand the client's qualification, rules, or engagement. And first of all, when you do that, just listen to what they're telling you. A client is always going to tell you exactly what they're looking for, why they're looking for it, and if you get the opportunity to talk to them, they will tell you what their incumbent is doing wrong. So the big thing is definitely listen. So, you know, when you look and establish key industries, vertical markets, leverage your existing customer base. So the things that you're doing well with the customers that you have, you want to leverage those. If you are doing business in the industrial supply space, the MRO space, pharmaceuticals, and their government, and when you look at your 80-20 rule, if you see that you have a great propensity to do business within pharmaceuticals, go after more pharmaceuticals customers because they're bringing you more revenue than those other lines of businesses. And, you know, create a consistent data sheet and marketing materials. And for us, I always realize that there are certain things that we do well. You know, we always get marketing materials done, edited properly, because at the end of the day, when you send out your materials and your proposals and your messaging, if anything is wrong with it, a lot of these local, regional, and national companies will disqualify you for the smallest thing. And make sure you have a single messaging throughout your whole organization, from the person that answers the phone for you to the CEO. Because mixed messaging goes a long way.
Can I elaborate real quick? Because you just hit something that made me think of a customer that we just recently had as well. That initially the messaging was all over the board. Okay, website said one thing, data sheet said another thing, email said another thing. It was all over the map. Okay. But just by adding a consistent message to the sales process, and I'm not talking about calling anyone or doing any marketing at all, but just consolidating everything into one message. It had one visual aesthetic, or it looked one way, automatically generated more attention to who they are, because that made sense. Where customers were inquiring about the organization, but it was confusing. So by having one message and all of the supporting documents were all consistent or consistently the same, that made a difference right there. And the other point I wanted to reiterate too, and this whole element here is the sales process, is these are just things that you need to have within your sales process. These are the core components within that element that you need to make sure that the company, your small business, okay, is consistent with. And as Anthony mentioned before, the scripts, the content, we just did an exercise with another customer a couple weeks ago where we went to the field operations folks and asked the question, what is the standards? And they gave one answer. Then we came back to the operations department and asked the question, what is the company standards? They gave another. Then we sat down with the executive leadership team and said, okay, so what is your business standards? And they gave something completely different. So there was 3 different messages, being communicated out there. And how many times are the field people talking to customers? Quite a bit. The operations teams talking to the customers? Quite a bit. And then the leadership probably didn't have that much engagement with the customer, but they're out there networking with prospects and potential customers, and their message is completely different. How does that impact your sales process? And I see some some good comments in the chat box now where everyone's like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, Well, if that's you, that's part of what this playbook will do for you. Now we're giving you the information. This is what you have to make sure that your playbook has intact.
Yep. So let's talk about I guess all the elements in the value proposition. So I always say this: be true to who you are and what you do through your research. So you have to know your value prop. You have to know it. Know the needs of your buyers and your customers. And the only way you're going to know that is having conversation with them, sitting down with them, and listening to them. Because, like I told you before, they are definitely going to tell you the good, the bad, the ugly, and what they like about your competitors, what they don't like about your competitors, and what they like about you. So you really need to be able to leverage that. And they're going to tell you, why are your competitors in the marketplace, how you can displace them, and what you need to do to make a difference to get into their supply chain. And your differentials have to be your value prop. So if it's a local organization, your value prop can be, like Scott said earlier, as a small business, you're nimble, you're quick, you can make decisions. You're not like the Titanic and it's going to take you hours to turn around. And your value prop regionally has to be pretty much the same. And when you're looking at national corporations, your value prop really needs to be, when you are sitting in a position to do business with national organizations, can you move their needle within their C-suite that really makes a difference today for their stock prices? A lot of people don't understand that, and are you aligned in accordance of what their values are? That makes a really big difference. So years ago, minority businesses were minority businesses. Now minority businesses are white women. They are black women. They are the LGBT, and also they're also veterans within the government organization. So you have to really be able to know exactly where you sit, how you sit there, and is your product competitive to solve a problem, or it is or is not in demand? We used to have some janitorial clients that would always tell us that we're 5% cheaper than their competitors. And janitorial, it was not a consistent item in order to move their needle. Now, if we're talking IT, you can go from spending, $50 million to spending $30 million. Now that really moves their needle. But on the janitorial side, when you talk about spending $2 million to spending $1.8 million, it just really did not faze the folks who were in the C-suites, in order to move their needle. And at the end of the day, you need to know exactly where you are as a partner or a venue. So, and utilize all your customer profile tools, to make your offer. You have to be able to align yourself within the market and establish a consistent product, features, and what makes you different to everybody else. And always direct your efforts to everybody that you're talking to in the right place to make sure that everybody understands who you are. So if you are, let's just say you're a small business and you know who your competitors are. So, and you all are calling on, let's just say Scott. Well, Scott has a boss ahead of him, somebody below him, somebody to the left of him, somebody to the right of him. So when Scott tries to promote your organization, you need to have Scott protected, the 4 people around him protected, and the 4 people around them protected. So now Scott doesn't seem as though he's doing you a favor because Scott only knows about you. And we call that the cross system. And we can talk about that, on a different webinar. But you have to look at it like one thing about life that's consistent is change. So if Scott's gone, you don't want Scott to be your sole carrier of your product or program. But if everybody knows in the company about you, it seems as though now you have positioned yourself with being a partner versus a vendor.
And can I iterate something real quick? You hit something that we see quite a bit is about your product or your service. How competitive is it, right? In your playbook, you got to make sure that in your playbook, and if you do these exercises, you go through this process, you're going to find out whether your product solves a problem or is in high demand. Because if it's not, there's nothing you could do in your sales process to make it in more demand. So it could just be positioning. You may have to go back and be a little bit more creative. Okay? You have to be innovative. In today's competitive environment, there is a crowded market for just about everything. Okay? The only thing that really disrupts the market is innovation. So you have to be willing to make change.
And I have to, you have to realize that anything that you are selling from a product perspective, Amazon is selling it also. Exactly. So, so can they go to Amazon and get your same product for a value for a really good price and get it the next day? So, you have to consider that. Years ago, Amazon wasn't in the marketplace. So now you're competing against Amazon, Walmart, Target that have online solutions to get them products and, at a wonderfully reduced cost.
And that goes back to your market positioning. It goes back to your marketing positioning. Guys, listen, right? You have to have a unique sales proposition, okay? What is so different about you that I have to come to you and buy your product? That is part of what you have to put into your playbook. Now, it may not be the same as some of your larger competitors, but you have to find a way to position yourself in the market to where you can go and be extremely aggressive in your sales pipeline. And once you know your customer profile, as Anthony mentioned, your customer profile tool is going to be the holy grail for your sales process. Because once you know where your customers are, who they are, what the geographic positioning is, their demographic, their psychographics, whatever, the whole process in the customer profile tool. Once you know that and understand that, you can be extremely aggressive as long as you have these components within your marketing and positioning.
Yeah. So let's talk about management and measurement. So assuring your business team is tracking or reporting the right data. So now, you can track and report data through different CRM systems, and really through Google, and establish your productivity, your metrics, where you are, where you want to be, and how you stack up against everybody else in the marketplace. Knowing how you're forecasting your sales and where you are in the supply chain. Really, you have to know whether or not you are a vendor or a partner in the supply chain. And that is really, really critical. And the closest that you can come to being a partner in the supply chain, the better off you are, because like Scott was saying earlier, it's hard for large corporations to make major changes. Local corporations can do it quicker. Regional corporations, it take them a little bit longer. And let's definitely be, schedule reporting activities daily, weekly, monthly, because you want to be able to, this is the only way that you're going to be able to measure your team performance. And monitor it closely. I know it's not the sexiest thing to do, but you have to be able to do it. And utilizing different CRM and scorecards to manage your activity, and that is part of your networking opportunity. So when you go to these different opportunities and you're talking to these different companies, you have to be able to network the right way and see who's doing what, how they're doing it, and how you can increase and manage it better for your organization. Let's identify performance areas that win, lose, or waste resources. Let's really concentrate on the whole quality of contacts that you have within your network versus just names. Because a name and a great title, but if nobody's really being able to do anything they can do for you, it's a waste. So you don't want them directly in your network and within your supply, within your access to when you're calling on them to make a difference. And, like Scott always says, let's establish new metrics that work and are sustainable. So right now, IT and all that is becoming so quick, so fast, you have to be on the cutting edge of being able to make this happen for your industry.
Man, listen, guys, and I see your questions. We're going to try to get to those at the end of the webinar here. But really, there's four paths or four critical paths to your small business growth. Okay, Anthony just broke down the ecosystem for you, right? So now you have some framework. Granted, there's a lot more. There's probably some more advanced things that could increase your ROI a whole lot faster. But the core of the ecosystem, those 5 pieces: the assessment, the planning, your processes, your positioning, the management. Those are things that you can do on a daily basis. Every single day, you can say, I'm going to carve out an hour or so to each one of those elements. And I guarantee you, if you put this playbook together and you follow this process, you'll see things you've never seen before. Never seen before. Okay? We've done this for many years, several decades. Everyone on our team has got 20 to 30 years, if not more, experience doing this. And as I said before, we're totally dedicated on helping other small businesses understand. And this is not rocket science. Some of you probably heard many of this before, but at the same time, hearing it, understanding it, and executing are three total different things. So really there's four critical paths to your growth. One is consistent sales activity. Anthony just broke down all of the things, the core things that you need to be doing on a day-to-day basis, okay? You cannot get around it. I understand sales may not be sexy, as Anthony mentioned before, but one thing I do know, everything you do in your professional career or as an entrepreneur has something to do with sales. You will never grow, period, without it. So if you don't like it, I highly recommend that you embrace the sales activity. And, if you guys end up, wanting us to come help you, I can promise you this. We're going to show you how to get those extra 10, 15, 20% or points, in revenues per year, year over year. But at the same time, you have to learn to embrace the sales activity. Second piece is customer engagement. There's no way you're going to get away or get around the customer engagement. And that should be an automatic for all small businesses. In fact, that should be the place where you get the greatest return. You should be highly competitive in the customer engagement section. And it doesn't take money to do that. It just takes the fact that you have a service heart. Your business is wrapped around serving your customer, providing a solution, or coming up with some innovative way to have a better product for your target audience, period. It cannot be about money, because if it's about money, your customer engagement will never get any further than what it is right now. The next is the measurement management piece, and trust me, I manage, sales executives across the country in my corporate days. Trained them, sell them, put them out in the wild, and trust me, you can do it as an individual, but you have to have a systematic approach. And that goes back to the CRM, as Anthony mentioned. It goes back to your daily activities. You got to understand where your key result areas are. If you know where your KRAs are, then it's easy to implement performance indicators. For each key results area, you should have a list of performance indicators. And that's what you monitor and manage on a daily basis. And then the last piece is execution. You can have the best playbook, the best ecosystem in the world, but if you don't have a mindset of execution, then all you're going to do, we call them one-hit wonders. You get new prospects, you know how to bring in leads and get prospects, but you can't sustain them. You don't know how to go back to the 80-20 rule, where 80% of your business comes from 20% of your customers. Well, you can't do that if you're not executing well. So those are the things that I wanted to reiterate. Now, I'll let Anthony go back to, the components of the sales process, so you could put your playbook, you can start framing your playbook right now.
And really, because I want to be mindful of everybody's time. So the components of the sales process, you can clearly see it. But, we always boil it down to this. Access plus relationships equals opportunity that drives revenue. Clearly. So, the plan, the prospecting, the lead generating leads, the appointments, the proposals, the closings after the sale. But if you can't get access with the relationships that you have that brings you opportunities to drive revenue, that's where it is. And I'm going to let Scott continue on, but that's how we've done it over the last few decades. And, if we never had access plus the relationships that gave us the opportunities that help our companies drive revenue, we were totally out of luck. So go ahead, Scott. I'll let you take it from here.
Okay. And real quick, just want to go through this piece. And it's pretty simple, right? If you take your playbook and you look at your process, you can break it into segments, right? Where you've got you see in the graphics here, you've got your front end segments of your process, and that's basically your data sheet, your website, your unique sales proposition. That all has to match, Okay, then your second phase of that is pretty much your production side. Got to make sure that you're engaging your customers, you're delivering, you're deliverable. You know, your products and service actually does what you say it's supposed to do. And then the back end of that is your customer service and your follow-up. If you do those things, you have everything in alignment, it's very easy for you to accelerate your business growth through sales. So real quick, I had an exercise I'd like for everyone to conduct. And you don't have to do it right now, but at some point, you know, as you're putting your playbook together, you know, ask yourself the question, how do you know if your current product or service is in alignment with your business strategy, the messaging, your market, your goals, and your projected sustainability? Now, it sounds like a complicated question. It's really not. I mean, you just ask the question to yourself, what problems are you solving for your customer? As Anthony mentioned in a scenario about the janitorial services, you know, okay, great. You provide janitorial services. But what makes you different from everyone else? Are you targeting the right people in your market? You know, so how do you specifically solve these problems? Are you helping them save money? Are you providing, you know, a clean workplace? Are you doing something that's special? So here's a list of some of the questions. Write them down. Make sure that you go as deep as you need to be. This is a deep dive playbook exercise. And it's the same exercise that we would conduct if we came in and sat down with your team. We're going to dive so deep that you're going to know more about your product than you probably ever thought of, because we're coming from the outside looking in. And it's easy building your business because it's your baby, you know, and no one wants to have their baby be told that, you know, your baby's not as cute as you think it is, right? But sometimes you have to dive so deep into it, then you have to understand, like, okay, well, you know, my specific company, I need to get better with innovation. So there's so many different things that you could do that we really just don't have a whole lot of time to go into. But I really wanted to kind of make sure that I leave this with you. And then I want to open up the opportunity for Jim to talk from a customer, the customer value and execution aspect. And this is really, you got to listen up, guys, because Jim has worked as the procurement, as the person that's making decisions at an extremely high level, and how that applies to the small businesses that he's seen come through the doors, the ones who win, the ones who lose. So, Jim, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thanks, Scott. Listen, with two key things in mind, a lot is centered around the innovative ability to be innovative and yet have a progressive strategy as you began this webinar. Part of that is, one, talking to the customer needs, looking at what each of the customers needs, but it also is synchronized down to what value that everybody brings to the table, from the top down to the person who's actually providing that service. And a lot is realizing that everybody brings something to the table. What is their value? What is the expectations are? And then, okay, what are the needs of the customer? And that comes with that being able to look at your various processes by conducting analysis, and then coming up with some solutions that, with alternatives that be able to help to be progressive in providing a solution that's going to be one that it includes the innovation, and yet it's more progressive. And a lot of that depends on the performance, the ability to provide whatever was promised to the customer. For example, it requires a look at your logistics, a look at the productivity, a look at the various, the ability to look at maybe how you're doing stuff, the quality and the precision, the ability to take a look at and continually have an ability to look at indicators and capture your various successes, and being able to leverage those successes and replicate the successes and how effective you are in meeting the needs of the customer. This includes being able to leverage your effectiveness and look at your individual talent of all the individuals that are providing the services. And I think that it's important to look at what everybody brings to the table, from at the front end, the hierarchy in the organization, the middle management, senior executives, what everyone brings to the table, another relook, and then another relook again at what services are required by the customer, and then developing a progressive approach in providing as we have titled here, executing, being able to execute.
Well, I don't know if you guys really caught that, but that was critical information. Now, think about this now from a customer's perspective, right? They have to make sure that you're able to understand their needs. Again, you cannot do that thinking money first. And too many small businesses are thinking, hey, I'm in this to make money. You know, yeah, financial freedom is important, but as Jim just mentioned, I mean, that is the most important thing. Anthony said it earlier in the presentation. If your product or service is not solving a problem or servicing the customer's needs, then you need to go back and reassess and evaluate what it is that you're doing. And the performance piece as well. That goes back to the execution. As Jim mentioned, if you're a small business and you're competing with a lot of mid-size, mid-cap to larger organizations in your market, then your performance has to be probably 20, 30, 40% stronger than your average competitor, especially if you're competing in, you know, the small fish in the big pond. You have to be a strong swimmer there. I'm sorry, Jim, go ahead.
Yes, and how comfortable are you? You know, it begins with when you're looking at how you do your communication. I like to compare it to, in my expertise, I used to hate going to meetings. It seemed like there was a lot of time wasters. So some of the approaches in federal space would be to create reader heads, and more modern to date would be to have a thread going about a particular subject, about a particular issue before you get a chance to go to the meeting to take and make best value of the time and get results. Going to the meeting and being ready to meet. And I think a lot of that has to be, you know, when you get a CEOs or maybe some senior management in the room, it becomes a little bit difficult in trying to maybe, you know, if I'm not part of the management tier and I'm one of the worker bees, and what happens is they tend to hold back on a lot of information, or maybe interacting with upper management. So what happens is we can utilize some of the innovative technology to take and use where we have, in fact, chats and threads, tweets, Twitters, you know, where we have some of the technology, and to kind of get information, an opportunity where there's no barriers to the communication. And in that way, when you get ready to have the meet, it actually comes without a label on anybody, and it's very neutralized. And then you can actually address various topics. And then it allows you to be better prepared on how you would like to address being consistent and having some of the same messaging across channels. Another is, you've heard, access and relationships. Part of that was when I was talking about synchronization, or in this case, it begins with self-synchronization. And what do I get from the organization, how well I can leverage what I have for the organization, and yet it's synchronized to delivery, whether it be logistics, down to what is the actual need of the customer themselves. So a part of that is being able to say, hey, I have to have a comfort zone to be able to have maybe a smooth flow of communications, and yet where there's no barriers in the communication, and leverage some of the new technologies or some of the social media for the benefits of highlighting some of the successes that you capture and moving your company to the next level.
So Jim, quick question for you, because I'm getting bombarded right now with questions in the chat box. But I did have a question for you, and hopefully you can elaborate a little bit more on this, though. But from a procurement perspective, right? How important is it to be confident and comfortable with communicating with someone like yourself? And that's one part. Second part is, you know, the message itself. Is that so important? How important is that to a small business, you know, coming to your office in your old days of the corporate world, you know, looking for an opportunity? How important is that?
Well, I think my answer would be very simple. It's the difference between getting the job that a contracts administration team may have in your organization and providing or fulfilling whatever legal requirements, legal obligations, legal terminology, versus I'm just a worker bee and I have a need and I'm truly the actual person needing something or wanting something or desiring something, and making sure that there's no disconnects between, I've got contract administration, but yet they don't have any. For example, if I have a piece of technology or something that I'm trying to procure, they may be limited. They got the process and what all I need to follow. They know that I may have to have however many bids, how many quotes, or what that process of procurement and acquisitions is, but yet there may be a need there to better define the customer requirement in a particular statement of work to ensure that it's communicated the proper way to a customer or to the public, that they may be able to respond to a particular procurement or acquisitions effort.
Wow. I hope you guys really caught that, because what Jim just gave you really drives home some of the skills you're going to need to really make your playbook work for you. Okay? What Jim just mentioned is the fact that you have to have great communication skills. And that doesn't mean that you have to be this extroverted, motivational speaker, because you don't have to be. Okay? You just have to be very comfortable and confident with your abilities to communicate clearly what your value add is to the customer. That's it. Now, if you don't have those skills, great. Work on it. Work on that. You need to be able to negotiate. I'm a big champion for customer service skills. You can't get enough of that. Okay? I mean, if you get a good customer, you got to be able to keep that customer. Customer service is a key component to that. You know, got to be able to execute. And some of the newer things that we're seeing now in the industry, a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of sales executives are, you know, going after the NLP skills and NLP's training. And I think it's neuralistic linguistic programming. I hope I said that right. I always butcher the scientific term for it. But NLP, you can Google it and see how it ties into sales. You know, it's really the psychological aspect of it. You know, help you understand how to engage, you know, the thinking process with your decision makers. But these are just certain things that, as Jim was just saying, you have to listen up. When you get in front of your customer, that is your one shot. Doesn't happen a lot. A lot of competition right now. But you got your playbook. You understand the ecosystem. You got everything else in place. Let's not discount the importance of building your skills in your playbook. It's very important. Okay? You know, and here are some real quick playbook skills that you must have. And we talked about that, you know, the communications, understanding your customer needs, negotiating better, just really what we just talked about. Those are the things that, you really need to put in play. So let's bust some of the common small business myths. I love doing this. This is one of my favorite segments because a lot of small businesses that we talk to, okay, I always believe that if I get more clients, I'm going to make more money. No, you are not, okay? The clients are not the answer to your prayers. The answer to your prayers is understanding how to dominate the ones you do have. And if you're a new business and you're just starting out, you have to be able to dominate the process of executing to the umpteenth degree to hold on to that customer. I can show you 20 times over a company that is a professional lead generating machine with no process, no playbook, nothing, no ecosystem in place, and all they're going to do is bring in a bunch of new customers, they churn and burn them, versus an organization that has the ecosystem in place and they're strategically going after customers that they know really fit their product or service well. That company there will make 10 times more money than the organization that is churning and burning. Here's the reason why. It's because at some point in the churn and burn, they're going to spend more time going back with corrective action. Wasteful activities. That goes back to your assessment and planning. Okay? More clients only compound your issues if you don't know what they are. So all you do is just get overwhelmed with more leads, okay? And they do not lead to more opportunities, especially if you're failing to execute at a very high level. So that is the machine, guys. That is what you see your competitors, your market leaders in your industry, the ones that have bad, maybe mediocre service or products, but they have the machine behind them that I mentioned earlier. That's how they get away with it. It's because that machine is an ecosystem, and it is all about engagement, all about execution. They're all about the customer. Money's not the number one thing. It's a secondary, or it's a byproduct of what they're doing. Versus the small businesses got all the perfect technology. The technology could change the world, and no processes, no playbook, no ecosystem in play. All they're doing is churning over leads. The big secret to thriving, really, I think we've already covered it. It's maximizing the opportunities that you do have. Again, Anthony mentioned the customer profile. Those are warm buyers, because if you do the profile exercise properly, then you'll know exactly where your ideal customer is, and then you can pack your pipeline full of those. Okay? Those are more qualified. And then again, the execution. So one last, another exercise for you to do right now, and it really costs nothing, is you need to go back and survey your customers. Get some real true feedback on how they feel about your organization, about your product, about your service, how you operate. A lot of small businesses don't want to do this because they're afraid of what they're going to get back in response. Okay? I was working with a customer a couple of years ago, and they absolutely thought that they were the best things to slice bread. They brought us in. We started doing the assessment. We gave them the survey exercise to do, and guess what? Their brand was so bad in the market that it was unbelievable. I think they were shocked of how the customer really felt about them. Now, the good thing is they had a good product, good service. Bad processes, mixed messages, execution really wasn't all that great. But the survey, yeah, it may have been embarrassing, but what it did, though, it allowed them to collect that data, make adjustments, okay, pivot their core competency back to their core competency, and now they're 10 times better, generating probably 30-40% more revenue now than before. They couldn't understand why they couldn't get off the couch and back into the game. Okay? So collect a survey, collect data, and just look at it as a benefit. If you're really serious about growing your business, it is a benefit to what you're doing. I hope everybody's with me. You guys still with me? If you're still with me,
Yeah.
excited, yeah, let me know in the chat box. Good deal. All right, so we're going to wrap up, guys. We're getting close here, and we apologize. I know we try to keep it within 60 minutes or so here, but trust me, we got some good stuff for you toward the end of this webinar. Hang in there with us. I know this is good information, and we'll try to answer a couple questions for you. All right, so let's get to, hopefully you can see my screen here, the customer engagement. Jim, if you could really share some insight on what that looks like for the small business.
Yeah, a lot of the key here is, once again, it goes back to what Anthony was talking about with access and relationship. Being able to engagement. What is that engagement involved? Sometimes some of the things you could do is, for example, would be such as like random sampling, maybe some random sampling to see exactly what the likes or maybe some of the dislikes are. And that is critical, that you have a relationship where, and a smooth process in place where you have interaction and flexibility to make change and then keep moving towards fulfilling whatever the requirements or the objectives may be for the customer. And part of that is, it may include some education, awareness on how things work to the processes, and then, you should be able to come up with something that is going to be satisfying to the meeting the customer needs. And the next slide talks about understanding this requirement and the ability, what are the customer's expectations. A lot of that has to do with your ability to conduct analysis. And I know, Scott, you can agree with me here. I'm always really, one of the buzzwords we like to use is some type of methodology, a procedure, a process in place based on some type of, or benchmark on some successes, maybe according to industry standards. So some of those are introduced along with the random sampling, along with the customer engagement, in order to come up with a better understanding of the requirement, maybe on both ends. And then relook at your various processes, and then look at the service levels and figure out, are you meeting the various standards, and then what is what is the way to exceed those expectations.
So I hope that you guys really are starting. It should start to come together. I'm looking at the chat box now, Jim and Anthony, and I'm seeing a whole lot of it makes sense now, and hopefully you guys are at a point to where it makes so much sense that you can really take this information back to your business, back to your organization. If you have teams, share this information with your teams. Sit down and have, strategy sessions with them. Make sure you have clarity on where you are. Because these tools here that we're sharing with you, they're not rocket science tools, okay? But it's how you deliver it. It's how you utilize it. And most small businesses don't utilize them wrong. That's why you always hear me say a lot of customers have the right ideas, the right concepts and strategies, but they put them in the wrong sequence. We're giving you the whole playbook. Everything's open to you right now, and you should take advantage of that.
Yeah, and Scott, as we get to this particular slide, and at the end of the day, the best tools will give you the right access, proper relationships that give you opportunities to grow your revenue. At the end of the day, that's what you're really trying to do, and we're giving you all the tools in place that will give you those 4 pillars in order to grow your business. So if you like it and you follow the process. We've had over 3 decades of of expertise talking to you on the phone today, and give it a shot, and you put it in place. And if it does not do what we know it can do for you, give us a call and we'll implement it for you. Thanks a lot, Scott.
Yeah, and one thing I will iterate, and listen to me closely. I helped build a $55 million small business from scratch. Okay, me and 5 other executives. Okay, one thing I learned about tools and playbooks. Okay, before we implemented a systematic approach to doing business, it was chaos. We opened up 2 offices, and you walk in those other 2 offices, it was almost like you walking into a completely new business. Once we went to a systematic approach and we established a framework and methodologies around playbooks, we started opening up offices across the country. We had 15 offices, and you could walk in any one of those offices anywhere across the country, and the building looked the same, the office looked the same. You could walk to the executive's desk, and it had the same information on. I'm about to date myself. It had the index cards with the big fat monitor, computer screen, and then you had your notepad, and every desk was the absolute same. Now, why was that important? Well, it helped with scalability, because as we started bringing in more people, we had a process. And it was the same thing with the sales team. As we started training sales team, we trained them the same language, the same message. So this toolbox or playbook that we're giving to you right now, it's really a toolbox. It's going to help you manage the entire ecosystem. You can put it in play. Now you understand what it is. You can manage real-time data that you can adjust. I mean, there's nothing worse than having a non-performing salesperson on your team who's just sitting there draining your revenues, collecting the paycheck, and you don't know what to do with that person. But in a system, within weeks, guarantee you, if we come in, I can tell you within days, I can show you your performers and your non-performers. And then you can make the adjustment quickly. That's what having a toolbox, a playbook, what it can do to you, do for you. So the common challenges, again, is small business, right? It's simple. You're not setting good milestones. You're never meeting your numbers. You don't know why. Some that we see set unachievable goals. I'm going to make, $500,000 in the next 3 years, and you barely can make $100,000. You can't close your prospects. I mean, these are all the same things. If it sounds like you, guess what? Don't feel bad. You're not alone. I would probably say 90% of the small businesses operating today are all feeling something very similar to that. And it's no slight to your business. It's just part of the maturity process. As I showed you the maturity model, you're either in the existing phase or you in the survival phase, and then you have that breakthrough, that one breakthrough, and that really doesn't keep you out of the woods, but you're feeling good. But until you hit that maturity phase where you got financial freedom, all this information we're sharing with you is going to be helpful. It doesn't matter where you are in the model. Okay, it's all about putting in the right systems, having this playbook in play. That's what it's all about.
And like what Scott was saying, along with having the playbook in the pipeline, I mean, the biggest thing, now you have a systematic way to fill your sales bucket with big and large opportunities. But now you can look at the local, regional, and national opportunities. You can identify different phases that you are in the pipeline. Know the difference between the large and small scale cycles. And you can execute each deal with the same effort and consistency. So from our perspective, when you're looking at local opportunities, that's probably 2 to 5 months. Regional opportunities are 6 to 12 months, and national opportunities could take up to 12 to 36 months. And like I gave you the example before, I mean, you have to be able to go down the pipeline, understand where you are, and the most important thing, listen to your customers, and they're telling you exactly where they want you to go with them.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing. Anthony, if they don't know the customer, if you don't know your customer, you have no intel, no data, nothing. All you're doing is throwing all your efforts up against the wall, and you're hoping something's going to fit. That's it, you know, and that's a time waster. We call them time busters. And your playbook is going to eliminate the time busters, okay? You're going to thrive in this new sales culture because you're going to be able to manage your time well. Now you know exactly what's going on in your ecosystem. Each one of those elements that Anthony shared with you today in the ecosystem, it has a couple little activities within it, and you can even color code it. You know, put your color codes in your office or on your big board, on your dry erase board, or whatever the case may be, on your calendar. You know, Mondays is blue. You know, Tuesdays is navy blue. You know, Monday's light blue, Tuesday navy blue. You know, Wednesday may be green or Friday may be green. But each element you should be managing. And there's no executive on this call right now that if you worked with us and we ask you, you know, tell us about your organization, where are your blind spots, what do you believe your gaps are, right? You should be, now that you're equipped with this information, you should be able to whip that off quickly. And then we can get into the down and dirty, roll up the sleeves and get you the revenues that you need. But this is going to help you. So let's recap on the promise that I gave you, okay? I promised that I was going to give you an ecosystem, a playbook. And I think we delivered on that. Not only did we deliver, but you have activities now, tools, guidelines. You got some things you can go back and start having strategic plans with your team. Make sure you align. Everything's alignment with your sales strategies, okay? Now you're capable of delivering a world-class solution. Now you can execute. And trust me, if you do these things, you will increase your revenues 10, 15%. And trust me, I can take 30 minutes with you and show you where 30% more business could be. But it means nothing if you don't have a system in place and you can't go execute it. So it's important. So what does that look like? It looks like this. That's what it looks like. A continuous cycle. You're assessing. You're planning the right things. No more are you taking the right strategies and putting them in the wrong sequence. You got your business in position now. Now you understand what your sales process is. So you can't have your time busters, time wasters sitting around telling you, you know, oh, the industry's slow, the market's slow. Well, yeah, it's slow, but there's opportunities right now. And only the ones who have a machine behind them, a playbook, an ecosystem, they're going to be the only ones that's going to win. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. You're in the right position now because you're targeting the right customer. No more you just taking a sheet of 1,000 phone calls. Anthony and I was just laughing the other day. We were on a call, and we were reminiscing on the days when we first started in sales where they just drop a big chunk of the dot matrix files on your desk and say, you know, you got to make 100 phone calls or more per day. And you don't even know who you're calling. You're just smiling and dialing. Waste of time. Nowadays, you have to be more strategic. And then you got to manage your team. You got to measure your data. Everything has a purpose in your ecosystem. No more of the just let me see how it works and it goes from there. So real quick, I'm going to try to throw out a couple questions to our team. I've been trying to collect some of the good ones from the webinar, and I apologize to everyone. There's no way that we're going to be able to sit here and get everyone's questions put out there, but I'll pick a few. And Jim and Anthony, if you guys can answer, I have one here. How easy is it to get your customers to provide honest feedback?
I'll take that, Scott. I mean, it just depends on where you are in the ecosystem, like you always say, with your customer. And if they really want to help you grow within their organization, they'll give you the information. But you have to know the proper questions to ask them in order to get the proper feedback from them.
Yeah, that's a good one. Good. Hopefully that answers the question for you. Jim, I got two for you. I think this is more in your wheelhouse. The first one is it possible that your pricing can be too low to be taken seriously as a new business?
Yeah, well, I think to properly answer that, it can actually go both ways. Yes, a price can be low. It depends on the market. I think some of the areas that we definitely need to look at is the capture. Along with that relationship, there's some intel that can be captured to see what is the marketplace. In other words, there may be a particular going price or going rate in a particular market that needs to be looked at in analysis. And I would say we have some great models from, Family Dollar to Walmart to, there are certain customers that are appealed or attracted to cheap price is their driving factor. But there are others that want to, don't mind paying a little more for the quality. So I think in this case that response can, I think the answer is yes, you can drop the price. It just depends on the market, and that will depend on research, ability to do some capture, and ability to take and leverage maybe some markets through market analysis of success.
And the other part, because there's a lot of government contracting questions here, but one that stood out was, does this playbook apply to government contracting or contracts?
Absolutely.
How does the playbook apply? I think that's what they're asking.
Well, I think, when we look at the ecosystem itself from a standpoint of, hey, I'm trying to take and have a goal of trying to gain, leverage my corporate expertise in gaining some government contracts. Part of that, once again, it's going to require some marketing. Marketing your product, marketing your individual organization. In other words, coming up with a, not from your playbook, taking those things that you bring to the table that could take and provide a particular enhancement, or say you have an area of expertise, whether it be in healthcare or if it's in technology, that you may be on the cutting edge of that technology with some of your processes and what you've done, and then ability to take and show the government that where you've implemented and instituted some of those and in the commercial market, and then how it would apply to some of the things that they're doing in government and trying to achieve a, in other words, they could use and benchmark some of the successes in industry, private sector, and utilize that to take and enhance the operations in government. They have the same goals. A lot will depend on, again, knowing the customer. In this case, you could take Army, Air Force, Navy, each one, all are military. Each one of them have a different capability, whether it be in shipbuilding, aircraft, space technology, or, soldier, what the needs of a soldier are. And each one of those would be, although it's, the umbrella is for the military, you have yet very specialized needs and what the customer desires.
I want to add one thing to that, Jim. And guys, please understand, Jim is probably one of the world's top experts in that field. So what he just gave you, trust me, you need to really embrace and hold on to that. But I will mention one thing that I've learned from Jim is when we turn in proposals for our customers, okay, the number one thing that I see on every one of those government contracts is they're going to ask you, how do you plan to manage this contract? And what they're asking you, what's your systematic approach of operating your business? So take that, and I think we only have time for one more, and I'm going to take this one because this one came out of nowhere. How do you handle non-performing salespeople in the system? And I'm gladly that one came through. You get rid of them. At the end of the day, get rid of every non-performing person on your sales team because they're not going to help you get your business to the next level. The only reason you would hold on to someone is if you failed them as a leader. And that means you haven't given them the right training, they hadn't received the right information to be able to give a clear understanding of the customer needs or the value of the product or service. Now, if you haven't done that, then great. Give them a 30, 60, or maybe 90-day grace period. Bring them up to speed, train them, and then reevaluate. But if you've got someone that's seasoned and experienced and they're giving you nothing but excuses, your number one thing to do, and you have to take the emotion out of this because sales is the heartbeat of your growth, your business. And now you've got a professional playbook, a system that we just gave you. Don't waste it with having someone tell you that it doesn't work, that's not performing. So I'll just leave it at that. So we're going to wrap this thing up. And as I promised before, I've got some free bonus tools and materials for you. So here's for the ones who are still on, okay? I'm going to give you 15 small business documents that you can download for free. And when I say small business downloads, I'm talking documents that you can download and put into your sales playbook right now. These are the same documents that we utilize, same documents we've seen double and triple the growth within other small businesses. And they're not complicated. Excuse me. We're going to give you some sales leadership tools. We're going to give you some tracking tools. We're going to give you the sales planning documents. We're going to give you some daily and monthly reporting templates. And then we're also going to give you some email scripts. So what you're going to get for staying and hanging in there, because our commitment is to the small business community, is we're going to give you all of this information, okay, for free. All right? All you got to do is go to the link that we provide you. We'll send you an email for everyone who hung in there at the end. All you have to do is put in the header of the email that I stayed to the end. And what we'll do is send you a link to a Google Drive where you can go and download all of this information. And I also have an extra. I'm going to give you some additional bonuses. Okay? I'm going to leave some surprises in there for you because I really want everyone on this call to be successful. Right now is the time for small businesses to come together, help each other so that we can go and continue to keep this country afloat. We are the heartbeat of the United States. Okay? We employ the most people. We're the ones in the trenches. You know, we care about our community. We give back to our community. We create jobs. And there's no reason why we can't share information with each other. And that's what the Vertex Business Group is all about, is sharing information. Now, one of the questions I did see a lot come through the chat box is, can we help, those who are looking for us to come in? You guys don't want to fool around with doing it on your own. I have to mention it, okay? Yes, we can help you, all right? So here's how this is going to go, all right? What we suggest you do is we're not going to try to pitch you on, paying for some program right now, because we want to know who you are, and we want to make sure that you're serious about taking your business to the next level. As you saw earlier in the slide, our team, we're not just your average company that's going to give you this cookie-cut ninja hacks that you see on a lot of these YouTube channels, that only really target one thing, and that's getting you a whole bunch of leads and building your website and, getting you spend a bunch of money on Facebook ads, okay? What we do is we come in, we transform your whole business. And if it's sales, there's several different ways that we can help you. We can help you train your team. We can help you get your sales process in place. We can help you build your playbook. We even can help you with the direct sales and marketing piece as an outsource. Anthony's one of the best in the business at doing that. And he's got a team. So if you're really serious and you don't want to go through the trial and error of doing it on your own, we have to give you an opportunity to get with us. So we're going to send everyone a link to the free strategy call. Now, here's one thing I will say about that. There's not a whole lot of slots on the strategy call. We're constantly going into the calendar, readjusting, because everybody wants to talk and kick tires, okay? What we want to do is talk to the ones who are really serious about making a change in their business. Because when we come in, we're rolling up the sleeves. We're an extension of you. We'll represent you. We'll get you leads. Now you'll have access to a global network of billion-dollar potential customers, as well as we'll help show you where your ideal local customers are. So there's so much more that we can do. Absolutely, yes, we can help you. But we got to make sure that there's a fit for both of us. We don't want to waste your time, and we're not looking for you to say, hey, well, I just wanted to see how things will go. We have no problem chatting with you on the strategy call, and we'll probably give you a solution. You'll walk away with something that you can go and implement right now. But it's important for us to know that we're dealing with someone serious, because we're going to ask tough questions. We're going to help you really dive deep into your business so that you're better equipped to be successful, and you can predict your forecast right. You can have sustainable revenues year over year over year, well after we're gone. So it's important for us, because your success is our success. So yes, we will send you a link. Everyone who enrolled, we'll send you the link to the free strategy call. If you put in the header of the email, the subject line, that you stayed to the end, then we'll also send you the link to all the free tools that we promised. So with all that being said, we really appreciate everyone's time. I know we went a little bit over the limit, but I think it was well worth it. Many of you were really active in the chat box. I'm sure I'll be hearing from you guys after the webinar here. But the biggest thing is whether you decide to use our information, work with us or not, okay? All we really want you to do during this time, especially right now, is more important now than ever before, okay? A couple things. One, I want you to invest in your business. Small businesses don't invest in their business. They invest in other things, but not in the business, okay? Yeah, buying new equipment, buying a new printer, that's an investment, but you're not really investing in the business. Are you investing to make your business better? Are you investing in your own skill development? As the entrepreneur, the leader, it's important for you to invest in yourself. Improve your skills, okay? The third thing is give back to the small business community. Pay it forward, okay? To receive is to give. And that's what the Vertex Business Group is about, is giving, okay? So as you grow, pass it back to someone else who may need some help, all right? Send them over to us or send them to someone else. Give them a lead that they can utilize to help them grow their business. There's enough business in this world for everybody. Opportunities are in abundance. The only people who are missing are the ones who have a scarcity mindset, all right? And then the next thing is build your team's ability. If you fail to build your teams, it's on you that you're not really capturing the sales that you should be capturing right now. So with all that being said, we wish you all the best of luck. We look forward to hearing from those who are ready to make a change. That's why we call our community Game Changers. It's only for game changers, okay? And you will see results immediately if you decide to work with us. If not, we promise that the information we shared with you today, if you implement it right, trust me, you will increase your sales, okay? So with all that being said, we just want to thank you for your time, and we just ask that you dominate every single day. Don't hesitate. Don't procrastinate. Don't let a day go by that you don't dominate, all right? So everyone, we'd like to thank you for your time. Be blessed, and we will see and hear from you guys soon. Be safe.